on the day I passed away at the age of 78. My wife Callista refused to see me for the last time. I thought this farewell would be a farewell forever. But when I opened my eyes again, I found myself back to the age of 20 and living a new life. I decided not to have any contact with my wife Callista again until that day. I was chatting happily with a junior sister in the club. However, Callista, who was supposed to be a stranger to me, suddenly appeared with a sullen face. She questioned me in a bad mood. "She is younger than your granddaughter. How could you have the heart to do that to her?" I was speechless. At 7:20 in the morning, I finished my morning run. The other 3 people in the dormitory had already got up because they had a class at 8 a.m. today. Corbin calculated the time and said in shock, "Brother Henry, which girl did you fall for? You have been running in the morning for 2 months. This is incredible. I used to be the one who liked to sleep in the dormitory the most. But 2 months ago I suddenly became very active, getting up every morning for a run," which shocked the other 3 people in the dormitory. I picked up my clothes and prepared to take a shower before class. I said, "Running makes me energetic. It's not that I don't want to sleep. But my 20-year-old body actually has a 78-year-old soul living in it. Even my biological clock has followed my old habits. I wake up naturally around 6 o'clock. So I decided to go for a morning run. Who would have thought that 2 months ago, I was clearly a 78-year-old man. But after I passed away, I woke up and found myself back to the age of 20? At the beginning, I also fell asleep very early at night, which resulted in me being unable to concentrate on my evening classes. Fortunately, it gradually changed later, but the habit of getting up early remained the same. But there is nothing wrong with that. At 7:40, the 4 of us in the dormitory went to the first canteen under the dormitory building to have breakfast. I was drinking porridge when Corbin suddenly bumped me with his elbow, causing me to almost send the porridge into my nostrils. Corbin lowered his voice and said to me, "Brother Henry, it seems that your goddess is also buying breakfast." Upon hearing the sound, the 3 of us looked in the direction of his finger at the same time. The neatness was comparable to the military training of the year. It was Callista. The white sweatshirt on her body had no extra embellishments. The blue jeans made her legs straight and slender. She had an enviable appearance of a beautiful woman, coupled with her excellent body proportions. And simple clothes looked particularly attractive on her. She was wearing headphones and slowly queuing. She was swiping her phone with one hand, as if checking some information. In her left hand, she was holding a bottle of milk and taking a sip from time to time. I pursed my lips and looked away. I couldn't help but correct Corbin's words and said, "She is no longer my goddess. I feel like I am more like her grandfather now." Liam was shocked and said, "Brother Henry, why are you cursing?" I was speechless. No, when I died, Callista's granddaughter were older than she is now. And because of her family's strong genes, even her granddaughter looks a bit like her. So now when I see Callista, who is 20 years old, it is hard not to think of my little granddaughter. That's right, Callista and I are husband and wife. The kind of business marriage. We don't get along well with each other. And we have disliked each other all our lives and quarreled all our lives. Of course, I have never been able to win an argument with her. Even with such a chatterbox like her. She still has a husband. I admire myself for that. The only time I won an argument was probably when I cursed myself, saying that I would die earlier and be free earlier than her. She is usually very eloquent when she argues with me. At that moment, Callista's eyes widened and she didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she went back to her room with red eyes in anger. She was not as cruel as me and did not dare to curse herself. As a result, her words came true. I really died earlier than her. Callista and I have a son and a daughter. 2 grandsons and a granddaughter. All of whom are adults. When I died, they were all guarding my bedside. Except for the heartless Callista. After all, I accompanied her for more than 50 years. She refused to come to the ward to see me for the last time when I was only one breath left. I don't know how she is doing after I die. I can't care whether she is doing well or not. When I was just reborn, I also went to secretly see the 20-year-old Callista. Naturally, she didn't recognize me. When we passed by, she didn't even look at me. Although I had a crush on her throughout college in my previous life, I also succeeded in making her unaware of my existence. She was so cowardly that it made people helpless. She looked over. Corbin exclaimed, and I couldn't help but persuade him. Corbin, don't say all the time. I couldn't help but blurt it out. I haven't said it for many years. It's so smooth when I meet Callista. What's wrong with Callista? She seemed to be nailed to the spot. Her whole body was frozen. She stared at us blankly. Her eyes seemed to be slightly red. Liam said, "Why do I feel that she will cry in the next second?" When I met her eyes, my heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. Although I felt the same way about what Liam said. Why was she crying for no reason? Especially since she was a famous person in the school. In front of so many people. Luca said, "I don't know if she cried or not." He took out a tissue and handed it to Liam, and took another one for himself. He said, "But I know that if we don't leave for the classroom now, we will be the ones crying." Corbin screamed and said, "This is damn early." I looked away, and without time to think about it, I hurriedly packed up my things and left with the people in the dormitory. Fortunately, I was reborn in college because the experience of managing the family company for many years has been engraved in my bones, which made me very comfortable with the professional knowledge I learned in college. If I was reborn in high school, there would be no story behind it. After 1 or 2 classes of statistics, a few of us hurried to the lecture hall to take philosophy class and chose to sit in the 3rd row by the window. It is convenient to run to the canteen quickly after class. The window on the right faces the school road, and you can see rows of sycamore trees with yellow leaves. There are 3 classes in the same public class. When the bell rings, the classroom is still sparsely populated and not full. Corbin seemed to remember the topic we talked about in the canteen. He came close to me and asked me, "Why don't you like Callista?" I withdrew my gaze from the scenery outside the window after hearing his question. I remember that Corbin also asked me what I like about Callista before. I heard that many boys were rejected by her. How did I answer at that time? Oh, I chose one of the simple and real reasons. She is beautiful. Corbin choked and said, "Beautiful can't be eaten." I said, "It can't be eaten, but it goes well with rice." "Then why don't I like Callista now?" Corbin asked. "Do you think she is not good looking?" "That's not the case, although my relationship with her is not very good. I have to admit that no matter which stage Callista is in, her appearance is very superior. I just remembered our entangled life in the last life, when I went back to the age of 20 to meet Callista. I did wonder, if we don't get involved in each other's lives in this life, would both of us be able to live more comfortably? I thought for a few seconds and replied, "She sealed her heart with cement, and I cut my losses in time. There is no so-called white moonlight between us. No lingering thoughts, and no third party. It's just that Callista doesn't talk about love. Her heart is harder than diamonds and colder than glaciers. It can't be knocked open or melted." Corbin laughed and complained, "God damn, sealed heart with cement." The class bell rang, and a wave of students came in with the sound of the bell. I inadvertently raised my eyes and looked at the door, in my field of vision. It was easy to find Callista's slender figure. Her eyes also briefly scanned the rows of seats and finally met my eyes. But the next second, she was pulled to the back of the classroom by her roommate. I slightly turned my head to look at her back, only to see her let go of her roommate's hand and then slowly put her hands holding the textbooks behind her back. What's going on with this contradictory feeling of being young and old? With this posture, for a moment, I really felt that she was possessed by the old Callista. The teacher on the stage had already started teaching. I turned my head back and stopped distracting myself until the break. I picked up the thermos, opened the lid, blew on it twice, and then started drinking in small sips. I bought the thermos some time ago and was even teased by the people in the dormitory. How could a college student carry a thermos with him everywhere? From the corner of my eye, I saw someone walking to my seat, casting a shadow. I raised my eyes, my hands shook, and I suddenly took a big gulp of hot water, which burned my tongue. I tried hard to restrain the urge to stick out my tongue to dissipate the heat. I looked at the person in front of me with a little complaint and confusion. I didn't know why Callista was standing in front of me and looking at me steadily. In my previous life, We had no contact throughout college. My tongue was already a little numb. I asked her, "Classmate, is there anything wrong?" There seemed to be a flash of disappointment in Callista's eyes. But she quickly covered it up. She lowered her eyes and took something out of her pocket and put it on my textbook. She said, "Your meal card fell. Our school's meal cards all have personal information and photos on them. Maybe I left in a hurry this morning and accidentally dropped it on the ground without noticing." I thanked her, but she didn't leave, as if waiting for something. I expressed it with my eyes. "Classmate, is there anything else?" Callista pursed her lips and finally turned away silently. Liam said, "Wow, Brother Henry, it seems that you really don't like her anymore. Your attitude just now was so cold. Your face didn't blush, and your heart didn't beat fast. It doesn't seem like the reaction to seeing a goddess at all." "What do you mean by cold?" I couldn't help but retort. I was obviously very polite when I thanked her just now. Liam was speechless. Is this the point? I put away the meal card and covered my chest with my right hand, feeling the faster than normal heartbeat in the palm of my hand. How could I really have no reaction? That's the person I have liked since I was young. And the person who has been with me for a lifetime. Even if I go back to the age of 20. To me, we have only been apart for 2 months. But after all, I have lived for more than 70 years. And I have been struggling in the business world for so many years. How can a 20-year-old girl see my true emotions? In the past, if I didn't deliberately pass by the places Callista often went to, except for public classes, I basically couldn't see her. But now that I don't have that thought, it seems that I am more likely to run into her. In the morning, I came to the wind and rain playground as usual. There were already a few students jogging on the rubber track. I put the thermos I was holding in the old place but found a brand new one there. It was really strange. To be honest, if I hadn't developed the habit of drinking hot water with a thermos after I turned 30, at the youthful age of 20, I should have been accompanied by beverages instead of wolfberry tea. After thinking about it for a while, I put on my Bluetooth headphones and started today's morning run. I had just stepped onto the track and ran a lap when a white figure flashed by my side. I looked closely. Wasn't that Callista's back? I stared at her back countless times when I was in college. So I naturally wouldn't make a mistake. But why did she come for a run? Although Callista also has the habit of jogging in the morning. In fact, this habit was developed together after we got married. Not long after we got married, my parents lived in our house for a while. They forced us to get up early every day to go jogging and exercise. At first, it was a bit too much. But later we both fell in love with the feeling of running. So after my parents left, we still insisted on going for a morning run. Of course, she always disliked my fast running. And I would dislike her slow speed. Until we were too old to run anymore. We both gave up running and took walks instead, one in front and the other behind, keeping a distance of 2 meters. And now, I guess she couldn't sleep and got excited on the spur of the moment. I didn't think too much about it and continued to run my own way. After running 6 laps, I left the track, panting slightly. I walked slowly to where I put the thermos cup, opened the lid and waited for my breathing to stabilize before drinking. The owner of the other thermos cup also came back. My eyes moved from the white and slender fingers on the cup body to her face. I was speechless. I looked at her and she looked at me. We were silent with each other. I felt the corners of my mouth twitching slightly. Is Callista possessed by a demon? How come her favorite iced American coffee has become a thermos cup in advance? I remember when I was in my 30s and started to pay attention to health preservation. She snorted to show her ridicule. I just said, "When you are lying in bed in the future, I will broadcast you dancing." She snorted and said, "Are you sure it's dancing and not jumping up and down?" But the next day, I saw her new thermos cup. I couldn't help but tease her and said, "It's not contempt?" The other party just curled her lips and said, "In order to kill you in the future. There is still some hope for this health regimen." I was speechless. When I recalled the past, I felt so angry that my teeth itched, while regretting that my fighting ability was too weak throughout my life. I walked around with the thermos cup and left. I didn't realize something until I walked to the bottom of the dormitory building. I walked around. It seemed that Callista just took 2 steps towards me. I was thinking about my own things. So I subconsciously walked around her and left. Ah, what's the matter? I just walked around. Today is Thursday. We only have 2 classes at 10 a.m. There will be no classes in the whole school in the afternoon. It is the time for students to participate in club activities. When I was a freshman, I only joined a sign language association. But after going a few times, I was not very interested. So I didn't insist. So I usually spend this time in the library. The Photography Association that Corbin belongs to organized a trip to the Henry Mingshan Park behind the school this week and asked me if I was interested in joining. I thought it was nothing. So I agreed to go together. The fastest way to get to the small park is to climb over the back mountain of the school. The back mountain of the school is not high and the slope is not steep. There is a winding path leading to the end. We decided to walk over from the back mountain. When I saw Callista at the back of the team, I remembered that she was also a cadre of the Photography Association and had good photography skills. I had flipped through her portfolio in the study before. Corbin's physical strength was not good. We gradually fell behind from the middle of the team to the end. I said, "Corbin, your shoelaces are loose again." He was wearing new sneakers today. But the shoelaces seemed difficult to tie. They had already loosened twice. Corbin frowned and said, "I'm so annoyed. Why are they loose again? I'll throw these shoes away when I get back. Let me teach you." I squatted down and taught him to tie a slipknot skillfully and quickly. I also bought a pair of shoes before, and the shoelaces were easy to loosen. It was Callista who taught me impatiently how to tie this kind of stable slipknot. It's quite useful. When I stood up, I found that Callista had come to my side, frowning and looking at me. I don't know what she was thinking. "Henry, classmate," she called me and said, "Is it convenient for you to add WeChat?" This sentence is very similar to the first time we met on a blind date. She asked as if she was fulfilling her obligation. "Mr. Henry, is it convenient to add WeChat?" But her expression is a little different from before. There seems to be some emotions in her eyes that I don't quite understand. I smiled and said, "Sorry, it's not convenient." During the subsequent activities, Callista kept a gloomy face and other students didn't dare to approach her. But for me, this expression is familiar. I have seen it many times in the past 50 years. The only thing I can't figure out is why she would think of asking for my WeChat. "Brother Henry, you are here too," a voice interrupted my thoughts. Everyone was free to move around. I looked at the familiar person who I hadn't seen for many years walking towards me. It was junior sister Elena. She was a year younger than Callista and me. She studied in the same high school as me. I met her in the student union and later was admitted to the same university. Occasionally, we would run into each other on campus. After work, her father's company had business dealings with Callista's company. She is a mutual friend of Callista and I who contacted more often. I smiled and greeted her. "Junior sister, what a coincidence. You came here with my roommate." I pointed in the direction of Corbin who was shooting and said, "Over there." Junior sister Elena nodded and then extended an invitation. "I'm in need of a model. Senior brother, can you be her for a while?" I remembered that she had never been married since then. And I couldn't help laughing and said, "Junior sister, you are not in need of a model. You are in need of a boyfriend. Don't be single all the time." Junior sister Elena was a little stunned. Why did the topic go so awry? She opened her mouth to say something but was interrupted by a cold voice behind me. "How come she is younger than your granddaughter? How could you have the heart to do that to her?" Junior sister Elena was speechless. I turned around abruptly and found that Callista appeared behind me without me knowing when. The most shocking thing was what nonsense she had just said. She took my arm and led me to a place with few people. I fell into deep thought, following her while sorting out the current situation. Could the person in front of me really be the old Callista? But I returned to my 20s because I died. She was in good health. Did she die too? It is impossible that she only lived 2 months longer than me. But if it wasn't the old Callista, how could the 20-year-old Callista say something like that? Okay, I can't figure it out. I won't sort it out anymore. We walked to a deserted place and Callista let go of my hand and approached me. There was indeed the familiar irritation in her eyes. She raised her eyes and said, "Henry, you are perverted." I was speechless. You said this as soon as you opened your mouth. Are you polite? She said. Alina is only 19 years old and your eldest granddaughter is 22. I widened my eyes. Damn, it's really old Callista. Why did that old woman come here if she didn't live a good life? And what nonsense did she say? I couldn't help but retort. I'm only 20. Callista sneered and said, age 20. Mentality is 78. I was speechless. Callista's mouth was as annoying as in her previous life. She continued to chatter non-stop. She snorted and said, I was wondering why you ignored me. Obviously you should like me to death at this time. But it turns out that you are tired of me and want to change someone. I interrupted. Wait a minute. I couldn't help but raise my voice to cover up my guilty conscience. I said, when did I like you to death? She rolled her eyes and said, no. Then how did I find a box in your belongings? And there was a misplaced sneak shot in front of the camera when we graduated, which was taken as a photo with me. It also said at the back that it was the 4th year that she had liked me. I was speechless. I had indeed done such a stupid thing back then. I had thought that it was just to keep a commemoration of my secret love that ended in vain. I had an acute illness at that time, and I didn't have time to destroy the photo. So I had been hospitalized the whole time. Later I thought that even if she saw this secret, it would be after I died. So it didn't matter. I didn't have to face her and wasn't afraid of being laughed at by her. Who would have thought that the sequel would happen after the person was dead? It was really embarrassing. I calmed myself down and tried to control my voice and said, you are young and ignorant. Who hasn't been blind when they were young? In order to prevent her from holding on to this old story, I took the initiative to change the subject and said, how come you are the same as me? You died. You had an accident. It was fatal. The group of babies in our family lost 2 relatives in 2 months. When Callista heard my question, her eyes flickered a little. Unlike the fierce outburst just now, she was as quiet as a quail at this moment. I knew that if she didn't want to say it, it would be useless to force her. I frowned and changed the question. Then how did you know it was me? This question was obviously much easier to answer. She smiled contemptuously and said, your morning jogging habit, the thermos you carry with you, your way of tying shoelaces, and Alina, the naive girl. Aren't these all after you and I got married? I was speechless. Okay, I remember the details very clearly. I asked, then when did you come? Callista replied, the night before I met you in the cafeteria. That morning I was checking your class schedule. From that day on, all the abnormalities that Callista had appeared flashed through my mind one by one. It's not that I didn't notice it, but I just couldn't imagine at the time that she would return to this period like me. I have to say, it's really a sin, isn't it? It doesn't mean that only I can be reborn and Callista can't be reborn. But can you arrange for her to be reborn in another stage? In short, don't bump into me? Callista asked me to add her WeChat, but I decisively refused. She couldn't understand and insisted on asking why. I sighed and said seriously, Callista, haven't you ever thought that since we have started our lives again, can we make different choices from our last life? For example, choose not to participate in each other's lives. When Callista heard this, her body froze, and even her expression froze. I said, we had no feelings for each other before and walked together. But we quarreled all our lives. Wo wei yi ji zai de. English. It's obvious that we are not suitable partners for each other. Leaving each other may have a better result. Right? I said, and nodded to her lightly, preparing to leave, but she grabbed my sleeve the moment I turned around. Callista looked at me. Her eyes seemed to be filled with moisture, and even her tone seemed to be mixed with grievance. She said, but when you liked me, I didn't even know you existed. Your love for me only lasted for 4 years when I knew nothing. After marriage, you have always hated me. Her voice lowered, and she almost murmured to herself, when you don't like someone, you will hate them. It turns out that they are all the same. Callista slowly loosened her movements. I looked at her in a daze, and I felt a faint pain in my heart. Her feet seemed to be nailed to the spot and unable to move. She said, go away. Callista slumped her shoulders, as if she had lost her support. She had always been so proud, but now she was so fragile that it made people feel distressed. I wanted to explain, But I felt that the more I said, the more complicated the relationship would be. Maybe now it would be more possible to truly cut off contact. After standing still for a moment, I finally turned around and left. I didn't see Callista again for a long time afterwards. It seems that she really did what I said and no longer appeared in my life. But she didn't even stop attending public classes. She was really fearless of failing the exams. I was helpless, but there was nothing I could do. We each lived our own lives. Time quietly slipped to the end of the year. Our city welcomed the first snow on Christmas Day. The snowflakes fell lightly, matching the joyous atmosphere of Christmas, adding a unique romance to this night. My roommate and I came back from strolling outside. The school road was already covered with a light layer of snow, with many messy footprints on it. I couldn't help but recall one winter after we got married. The snow was thicker than it is now. Our two families made an appointment to have dinner together. Since the hotel was not far from home, Callista and I walked there. I don't have a good alcohol tolerance, but the atmosphere was so good that night that I couldn't help but have a few drinks. When dinner ended and we each went home, I could no longer stand steadily and leaned on Callista. In order to prove that I was not drunk, I stubbornly pushed her away and said that I would walk in a straight line for her to see. After a few steps, my ankle was sprained. Callista could only help me go home with a dark face. The distance was actually not far, but I leaned on her thin body, repeatedly stretching out every minute and every second to save her. The left side of the road is a dazzling array of shops, with neon lights flashing and bustling. On the right side are one after another street lamps emitting warm light, quietly lighting the way home for us. Callista supported me and left a string of footprints on the snow. She smelled so good that I couldn't help but want to put my face on her neck. I was a little drowsy. Callista hissed and said, "Henry, be a human being. I worked hard to support you, but you still used your face to cool me down." Something fell on my face and melted. It was icy and cold. I looked up at the night sky. Snowflakes were floating lightly. I ignored her words, but said absent-mindedly, "Callista, it's snowing." She snorted and said, "So can you not drink next time? How many feet can you sprain?" I laughed and said, "When the snow gets heavy later, you will become a little old woman, and I will become an old man, which can be regarded as going from youth to old age together." Callista said disdainfully, "I can finish this section of road before the snow gets heavy." I was speechless. Is this woman allergic to romance? Come to think of it, it was what we wished for. Callista and I really grew old together. When we arrived at the dormitory building, we found a group of people gathered around us. Corbin excitedly pulled the three of us into the crowd, wanting to be the first to watch. I shuddered instantly, and a bad feeling rose in my heart. How could I have forgotten about this? In my previous life, I experienced a social death scene. A nymphomaniac confessed to me in public. If she had just handed me a love letter or something, it wouldn't have been a big deal. The key point was that she cried and tried to blackmail me morally. In the end, I decisively refused to leave. I was caught off guard and she suddenly pounced on me and stripped off my pants. My scalp numbed when I thought about it. The crowd made way for a path, and I clearly saw the same scene as in my previous life. The girl was wearing heavy makeup and a miniskirt as if she was not afraid of the cold. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, but I couldn't help but want to curse. The person walked over quickly, and I quickly raised my hand to stop her from getting too close. The smile on her face paused, but she still pursed her lips and said, "Henry, I really like you. Can you agree to be my boyfriend?" As soon as I confessed, there was a commotion around me. My roommate saw my expression and knew that I didn't want to do it. So he quickly helped me disperse the crowd and said, "Why are you shouting so loudly that you are willing? Go and be with her." Her eyes were red, as if she was about to cry again. She choked and called my name. "Brother Henry." I was about to say a serious rejection when someone took my arm. I turned my head and saw Callista, who was wearing a white down jacket. At this moment, she no longer had the coldness of a high mountain flower in the eyes of others. Instead, she stared at the girl who confessed to me with cold eyes. Wishing she could tear her apart, she said, "Go away and cry, and don't bother him anymore." The girl replied unconvincedly, Who are you? Why should I go away? Callista leaned on my shoulder and said word by word. This is my boyfriend. We have children and grandchildren. Everyone was speechless. It's over. Has this famous flower been stimulated by something and is mentally ill? I was shocked and completely forgot to be angry. I just looked at her in horror. Callista, do you want to take a look at what you are saying? Are you really senile? You are so old, and you are so angry at a little girl. My eyes went dark, and I just wanted to destroy the world. I quickly pulled Callista's hand, signaling her to stop saying shocking things. Callista gave me a look, took a deep breath, and slowly added, I said it will happen in the future. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. It was a false alarm, and the person was still normal. My roommate looked at me meaningfully, and I shook my head vigorously. I wasn't. Don't think too much. I don't know what stimulated Callista. After that night, she began to appear in front of me frequently again. She couldn't add me on WeChat, so I don't know where she got my mobile phone number from. She sent me text messages from time to time and didn't care whether I replied or not. She was quite happy to send them. She also had my class schedule, so when she didn't have classes, she liked to come and take classes with me. I couldn't get rid of her. In the end, I simply ignored her and let her make trouble. Anyway, after a long time, this young lady would give up because she was bored. In the mean eyes of my roommate, all my explanations were like farts. So I was too lazy to explain anymore. This indulgence lasted for more than half a month. We finished our final exams and started our winter break to go home for the new year. Our families were not in this city, so it took 2.5 hours to fly back and then half an hour to take the bus. Callista's route home was the same as mine, so we walked together again. I felt a huge difference between her and her previous life, but I didn't understand why she was so clingy to me now. Maybe she didn't have a sense of belonging to this world of rebirth and felt uneasy. So on the bus, I said to her sitting next to me seriously, Callista, we are really back. This is not only my world, but also your world. You should do what you want to do and what you should do. You don't have to revolve around me all the time. The atmosphere was quiet for a moment. Don't you understand yet? Callista looked at me with her black eyes, with a little distress and confusion in her eyes. She said, how obvious do I have to be before you will know? I don't want to be a stranger to you. I don't want my life to be without your participation. Even if we are always quarreling like in the previous life, I don't want to let you go. I never want to have deep feelings for someone, because I still want to keep listening. Zen mi ban? Because this was the first time that Ruyan Callista revealed herself to me. And I felt that I was slowly getting closer to the one hiding deep in my heart. However, the next moment, I only heard a scream, and then a violent shaking. Before I could react to what was happening, Ruyan Callista rushed over. The tilt of the bus caused all the luggage, big and small, on the luggage rack to fall down, and some of them hit Callista. I only heard a muffled groan. The shaking finally stopped with great difficulty, and the car was still noisy. I opened my eyes and saw only darkness in front of me. I suppressed my inner uneasiness and shouted Callista's name. I knew she was by my side, but I was worried because I couldn't see her situation. My wrist seemed to be cut by broken glass, and it hurt slightly, and there was some sticky liquid. After a while, I felt the person on my body move. She trembled and said, I'm fine. Hearing the familiar voice, I was extremely nervous. I asked her in a hoarse voice, how are you? Are you injured? She replied, I'm fine. She panted slightly and said, don't worry about me. I reached out my hand in the dark to touch her face. But when I touched the back of her head, my palms were wet. Callista, my hands were shaking. I said, you lost a lot of blood. There were a lot of noises coming from outside the car. I vaguely heard someone rescuing. It seemed that the ground collapsed while the bus was driving, and most of the car body sank into it. Callista and I were sitting in the front row and were more affected. She said, I really don't feel any pain. Just hug me and I won't feel any pain. Okay? I gritted my teeth and controlled my emotions, holding her tightly in my arms. I felt her uneasiness, and I said, you must not move around and don't fall asleep. Did you hear me? She whispered. Yeah. My eyes were sore and I said, Why are you so stupid and still standing above me? Callista said in a hoarse voice. You old man are so bad. What should I do if you die before me again? After a moment of silence, the voice sounded again, choking with sobs. She said, if you die again, I'm afraid I won't have the same luck and can't find you again. When I woke up in the hospital, my parents were already guarding the bed. It was basically just abrasions and cuts from broken glass. But they were not serious and had been bandaged. After experiencing such a shocking scene, I saw my parents who had passed away many years ago. They were standing in front of me so realistically. The moment I saw them, my nose felt sore and tears came out. My parents comforted me and said, Son, you're fine. I thought of Callista and asked them in a hoarse voice, Where's Callista? My parents were stunned for a moment and asked, Who is Callista? Only then did I realize that they didn't know Callista at the moment. So I could only hurriedly get out of bed to ask the nurse. When my mother saw me, she quickly supported me and asked, Son, where are you going? I hurriedly replied, The girl who came back with me saved me. Later, I learned from the nurse that Callista was arranged to another single ward, which was 5 wards away from me. Because my own injury was not a problem, my parents did not stop me from looking for someone, but just followed me to watch over her. When I arrived at the door of Callista's ward, the nurse had just changed a new IV for Callista. I saw Callista's father in the ward. I subconsciously walked in and shouted, Dad! Callista's father looked confused. My parents were also confused. And I was speechless. Almost the moment I opened my mouth, I realized what was wrong. But I could only correct it awkwardly. Hello, Uncle. I am Henry, a classmate of Callista. I came to see her. Callista's father looked at the hospital gown on me and suddenly realized. You and Callista were both on that bus. I nodded. Since I was saved by Callista and was not seriously injured, my parents chatted with Callista's father with gratitude, while I stayed by her side to watch over Callista. She was seriously injured because she was hit by heavy objects several times. In addition to some scratches, she had trauma on the back of her head and 2 broken ribs. She has not woken up since she was sent to the hospital. Until the early morning of the 3rd day, Callista's father couldn't bear it anymore and went home to rest. The specially hired nurse was also sleeping nearby. I couldn't sleep, so I quietly ran to Callista's room to see her. Not long after, I saw her slowly wake up. There was no light in the ward, but the light from the street lamp outside could shine into the room, bringing some light. After waking up, Callista looked at me for a few seconds, then showed a smile, and her eyes were full of tenderness. I let go of the hand that was originally holding her, stood up, poured her a glass of warm water, and fed her a drink. How do you feel? I asked. She shook her head, indicating that nothing was serious, but still smiled, looking at me without blinking. I asked, No, what are you laughing at? Callista's mouth corners slightly raised, and there was a little hoarseness in her voice, but it could not hide the joy in her heart. She said, There is no moment that makes me feel more at ease than when you are by my side when I wake up. This is the first time I heard Callista speak her heart out to me. She blinked and said, When you just passed away, I felt that the world was so quiet that I seemed to hear nothing. I was stunned for a moment. That was something I didn't know. After I died, Callista lived alone. She said that she felt that life became quite boring. She sat alone all day, looking at the things you left behind. Have you heard of the fate of mandarin ducks? She asked. I heard that if one of the couples with the fate of mandarin ducks dies, the other will not live long. Callista hooked my hand and chuckled, saying, Henry, I seem to be the same. Obviously, my health is good, but 2 months later I lay on the side where you usually sleep and followed you. I sniffed, and my mind was filled with the lonely figure of the old Callista. I turned my head and said, Then why didn't you want to see me for the last time? Callista smiled bitterly and said, I always feel that as long as I don't see you, you will be so angry that you will leave unwillingly. But you still left me. I said a little helplessly. That's not something I can control. If the king of hell wants me to die at 3 o'clock in the morning, I can still hold on until 5 o'clock. She said, The moment I was sure that I was reborn and returned to the age of 20, I was eager to find you. But when I saw you the next day, whether in the cafeteria or in the classroom, you didn't have any special reaction. I felt a little disappointed. It seemed that you didn't return to the age of 20 like me. But soon, I noticed that some of your actions made me suspect that you deliberately denied me. I didn't plan to say it so quickly on the day of the event. But I saw that you and I were like strangers, talking and laughing with others. My heart seemed to be blocked by something. And I was so depressed. I wanted to expose your disguise and prove that there was a connection between you and me. But that day, I told her that we shouldn't participate in each other's lives. She said, realizing that you don't want to have anything to do with me in this life. I have really thought about it. So let it be as you wish. But she paused and continued. I can't seem to be as indifferent as before. On Christmas Eve, I finally figured it out. Since I can't let you go, I can only try to hold you tight. Realizing that I have been silent, she shook my hand gently and said, I have said so much. You should at least give me some reaction. What reaction should I give? I asked. Drink more hot water. Callista widened her eyes in anger and said dissatisfiedly. That's it? I scratched my head and said, the reversal is too big. I haven't figured it out yet. Callista sighed and said, Henry, I have never wanted to get involved in love. And I don't want to have feelings for a person. You know my parents divorced a long time ago. I have seen how they loved each other. And I have also seen how they resented each other after they stopped loving each other. At that time, I felt that human hearts are the most fickle. When they love deeply and when they don't love, it is uncontrollable. That's why I have been avoiding feelings. At least, I won't be hurt by others. A business marriage is good. And you don't have to give your true heart. It's also good to meet you. The dislike you show for me makes me feel free of burden. On the contrary, I can feel at ease to be with you. And even release all my emotions without any worries. We have children, just like you. Later, the children all got married and started their own families and had their own next generation. I really feel that I have lived a smooth and satisfactory life. Everything has developed as I expected. Except, she paused for several seconds before speaking again. I never thought that one day you would leave before me. Living by my side is as natural to me as I need to breathe air. I have quarreled and made trouble with you all my life. But I really have never thought of separating from you. I admit that I don't know how to love. But if I had a chance to do it again, I would like to study hard. Okay? After saying that, Callista stopped talking, just staring at me quietly. I knew she was waiting for my answer. After a long time, I slowly opened my mouth and said, that day you said that my love for you only lasted for 4 years. But it wasn't actually true. Callista, I smiled and said, I love you. I have loved you for most of my life. I know that you resist love. And I also understand that if I follow my own will and treat you well openly, it will only push you further away. Every time I accidentally show my concern, it will make you, who are sensitive, alert. I thought about it for a long time. Making you feel that I don't love you seems to be the most comfortable way to make you feel. In fact, we are the same. I hide my concern in the disgust that I pretend day after day. She hides her tenderness in every pretense. Callista and I have the same feeling. In the last life, she actually lived a good life. Compared with others who only see her excellent but cold side, she has shown me more sides of her. With rich emotions. That is a complete Callista. I feel that although I have not entered Callista's heart, no one has distanced us. She still gave birth to children for me and we have a complete family. I still stayed with her until the end of her life. When her thoughts came back, she continued, I said that I would no longer participate in each other's lives because I felt that I disappointed you in the last life. Maybe without me in this life, you will meet a more suitable person. She will make you change your view of love and live a happier life. But Henry, Callista said softly, you have changed me before I realized it. In those long years of companionship, I couldn't help laughing when I heard it. I didn't argue with her anymore. I said, okay, a person's life is long and short, in the blink of an eye. I actually accompanied Callista in acting for my whole life. I grew up in love and know that love is giving, tolerance, and companionship. Callista lacked love since she was a child and did not know how to love. Now, it seems that Callista did not necessarily love less than me. We are just a prophet and an apprehension. I asked, what would you do if I really didn't reincarnate? Callista replied without thinking, then I will chase you. I frowned and said, you are 78 years old. Callista retorted proudly, that's just a mentality. Understand? You can understand it as mature and stable. My actual age is only 20. It's a good match, isn't it? I recalled the words she sprayed at me that day. I was speechless. She played double standards very well. I said, by the way, I suddenly remembered the first time I went to the ward to see Callista, and said a little embarrassedly, when I saw your dad. I didn't change my words and called him Dad. My parents were following behind me at the time. The way they looked at me afterwards must have misunderstood. Callista laughed for a long time after hearing what I said, and even her chest hurt from laughing. Then, she restrained herself slightly, looked at me with a smile, and asked, is it still a misunderstanding now? I was stunned for a few seconds, then leaned over and kissed her forehead. I said, well, forget it. The winter vacation was only 1 month. After returning to school, Callista took a serious rest, and it took more than 3 months to fully recover. When the people in the dormitory saw me holding hands with her, they couldn't help but tease me, saying, you tried so hard to explain it at the beginning. What are you explaining? What you see is the truth. Okay, I won't struggle anymore. Anyway, the result was not biased. 2 years later, when we took graduation photos in our senior year, we had obviously taken many group photos. She insisted on dragging me to the same place where I had taken the photos of her that year and asked me to take another photo of her. She also forced me to write on the back of the Polaroid camera the words I had written before. 10 miles of spring breeze is not as good as you. It was like crossing the gap in time and space, passing through the long river of years, and making a distant but warm confirmation of the unspoken love many years ago. After the graduation photos, we officially started our internship, because we had so many years of accumulation in our previous lives. Callista and I returned to our respective homes, and the company entrusted us with important tasks. I've said it before, early morning in this world will always exist in different forms. Both of our companies start work at 9:30, but our parents stipulate that we must arrive at 8 o'clock. We are really a pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. On the first day of Callista's 22nd birthday, the weather was very good. We both slacked off during office hours and went out to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the marriage certificate. I really didn't expect Callista to be so anxious, but I couldn't resist her soft and hard persuasion, and I gave in within 2 days. Before getting the certificate, I couldn't help but joke to myself that I had never been in love in my previous life and got married. In this life, I had been in love once and got married, and it was with the same person, which was quite monotonous. Then, Callista bought all kinds of battle clothes and squeezed me all night. She asked, is it still monotonous? It's not monotonous. It's good, simple feelings and simple happiness. Coming out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, we both had a small red book in our hands. Callista asked me to keep the marriage certificate for her and put it in the inside pocket with great care. When I stopped at the red light, she asked me, do you still remember what you said before? That we should start our lives over again? You can make a different choice from your last life. I glanced at her and said slowly, why do you regret making the same choice now? No, I was just thinking. She leaned over and kissed me quickly while I wasn't paying attention. She said, we had 2 children in our last life. In this life, we've been married for 4 years. How about having another one? I was speechless. What kind of train of thought is this? Callista said happily, look, we both have such good genes. It would be a waste if we don't have more children. Right? I was speechless. Callista continued, as promising young people, we must actively respond to the call of the country. I replied, go ahead and have a baby. It's not like we can't afford to raise them. Callista made a heart shape to me and said, I love you. I looked at the road ahead, but the corners of my mouth couldn't help but rise slightly. Yeah, I love you too, from the past to the present and the future.